The dust cloud on the horizon meant only one thing in this part of Arizona territory. Trouble was coming fast. Jake Morrison pulled his hat down against the afternoon sun and squinted at the approaching riders. 6 men, maybe 7, riding hard across the desert scrub toward the small trading post where he'd stopped to water his horse. Jake had been a cowboy for 15 years, working cattle drives from Texas to Montana, and he knew danger when he saw it. These weren't ranchers or travelers. The way they rode, spread out in a line, weapons visible even from a distance, told him everything he needed to know. Raiders. Probably the same bunch that had been hitting isolated settlements along the territorial border for the past month. The trading post was small, just a wooden building with a corral, a well, and a few shacks where the owner, an old German named Klaus Weber, lived with his daughter. Jake had stopped here twice before on cattle drives, and Klaus had always been fair with prices and friendly with conversation. The man didn't deserve what was coming his way. Jake's horse, a sturdy bay gelding named Ranger, stamped nervously as the sound of hoofbeats grew louder. Jake patted the horse's neck and made his decision. He could ride away. Should ride away, really. One cowboy against 6 or 7 armed men wasn't good odds by any measure. But leaving innocent people to face raiders alone wasn't something Jake Morrison could do. He dismounted quickly and led Ranger to the side of the building out of sight. Then he checked his weapons, a Colt, .45 on his hip, and a Winchester rifle in his saddle scabbard. Not much, but it would have to do. The trading post door opened, and Klaus Weber stepped out, shading his eyes with his hand. He was a big man in his 50s, with graying hair and arms like tree trunks from years of hard work. Behind him, Jake caught a glimpse of a young woman with dark hair pulled back in a simple braid. "Riders coming!" Jake called out, jogging toward the building. "Armed men! You need to get inside and bar the door." Klaus squinted at the dust cloud, then at Jake. "You think they mean trouble?" "I know they do." Jake reached the porch and bounded up the steps. "How many guns you got in there?" "2 rifles and my pistol." Klaus was already moving toward the door. "Anna, get away from the window!" The young woman, Anna, Klaus's daughter, appeared in the doorway. She was maybe 25, with intelligent dark eyes and a determined expression that reminded Jake of his own sister back in Texas. She looked at the approaching riders, then at Jake. "You're staying to help?" she asked. "Yes, ma'am." Jake tipped his hat. "Jake Morrison." "Anna Weber." She studied his face for a moment. "Thank you." Klaus handed Jake one of the rifles. "They want supplies, money, whatever they can take. Sometimes they just take it and move on. Sometimes—" He didn't finish the sentence, but Jake understood. Sometimes raiders did worse than steal supplies. The riders were close now, close enough to see their faces. Jake counted 6 men, all armed with rifles and pistols, all wearing the hard expressions of men who took what they wanted by force. Their leader was a tall, thin man with a black mustache and a silver concho belt that caught the sunlight. "Klaus Weber," the leader called out as they approached the trading post. "Come on out here. We need to talk." Klaus stepped onto the porch, rifle in hand but not yet raised. Jake positioned himself to one side where he could see all the riders but still had cover behind a wooden post. "I'm Weber," Klaus said. "What do you want?" The leader dismounted, keeping his hand near his pistol. "Name's Dalton. We're passing through, need supplies. Food, ammunition, whatever cash you got." "I can sell you supplies," Klaus said carefully. "Fair prices." Dalton laughed, and it wasn't a pleasant sound. "Sell? I don't think you understand. We're taking what we need. Question is whether you're going to make this easy or hard." Jake saw 2 of the other riders dismounting, spreading out to flank the building. These men had done this before. They knew how to corner their prey. "I got a family to feed," Klaus said, his voice steady despite the danger. "Take some supplies if you must, but leave us enough to live on." "Family?" Dalton's eyes lit up with interest. That your daughter I saw in the window? Pretty little thing." The threat in his voice was unmistakable. Jake felt his jaw tighten. Klaus raised his rifle slightly. "Take what supplies you want and move on. Don't make this into something it doesn't need to be." Dalton drew his pistol with snake-quick speed. "Drop that rifle, old man. You're outnumbered 6-1. 7-1, actually," another voice said behind Jake. Jake spun to see a seventh rider had circled around behind the building. The man had his rifle trained on the porch. "Now," Dalton continued, his pistol aimed at Klaus's chest, "we're going to take a look at what you got inside. Food, money, ammunition, and maybe we'll get to know your daughter a little better." That was enough for Jake. He'd heard all he needed to hear. "I count 6-2, Jake said loudly, stepping out from behind the post with his rifle ready. "And the day's young yet." Dalton's head snapped toward Jake, surprise flickering across his face. "Well, well. Got ourselves a hero, boys." "No hero," Jake said calmly. "Just a man who doesn't like seeing innocent folks threatened." "You picked the wrong fight, cowboy," Dalton snarled. "This is none of your business." Jake took a step forward, rifle steady. "I'm making it my business." The tension stretched taut as a bowstring. Jake could see Dalton calculating odds, weighing options. 6 armed men against 1 cowboy and an old trader. The math seemed simple enough. But Jake had fought Apaches in the desert and rustlers in the mountains. He'd been shot twice and knifed once, and he was still standing. More importantly, he'd learned that sometimes courage mattered more than numbers. "Last chance, cowboy," Dalton said. "Walk away now and you ride out of here alive." Jake smiled grimly. "I'll make you the same offer." Everything happened at once. Dalton swung his pistol toward Jake just as Klaus dove sideways off the porch. Jake's rifle cracked, and Dalton spun around, his shot going wild. The raider behind the building fired, his bullet splintering wood inches from Jake's head. Jake rolled behind a water trough as bullets started flying from all directions. Klaus had found cover behind a pile of lumber, and his rifle joined the fight. Anna appeared at a window inside the trading post, adding her gunfire to the battle. 2 of Dalton's men charged the porch while the others tried to flank around the building. Jake rose from behind the trough and dropped one of the charging riders with a clean shot. Klaus's rifle boomed, and the second man stumbled and fell, but more bullets were coming from the riders who had spread out for better angles. A shot shattered the window where Anna had been firing, and Jake heard her cry out. That sound triggered something primal in Jake's chest. He'd been trying to fight smart, use cover, make his shots count. Now he just wanted to end this. Jake sprinted across the open space toward the building's corner, drawing fire from 3 riders. Bullets kicked up dirt around his boots, but he made it to cover. From there, he had a clear shot at 2 men who were trying to circle behind Klaus. His rifle spoke twice in quick succession. Both men dropped. Dalton was wounded but still fighting, his left arm hanging useless while he fired with his right hand. The remaining rider was behind the trading post, but Jake could hear Klaus working his way around to flush him out. "Give it up, Dalton," Jake called out. "It's over." "Like hell it is," Dalton snarled back. He was behind his horse now, using the animal for cover while he reloaded his pistol. Jake saw his chance. He sprinted forward, covering the distance in seconds. Dalton looked up just as Jake vaulted over the horse and tackled him to the ground. They rolled in the dust, fighting for Dalton's gun. The outlaw was hurt but desperate, and desperation made men dangerous. He got his knee into Jake's stomach and rolled on top, pressing the pistol toward Jake's face. Jake grabbed Dalton's wrist and held on for his life. The gun was inches from his head, and he could see the killer's gleam in Dalton's eyes. Then a rifle shot cracked from the trading post porch. Dalton jerked and went still. Jake pushed the body aside and looked up to see Anna Weber standing on the porch, Klaus's smoking rifle in her hands. "Behind you!" Klaus shouted from around the building. Jake spun to see the last raider emerging from behind the trading post, rifle raised. Jake's hand flew to his Colt. drawing and firing in one smooth motion. The raider's shot went into the dirt as he toppled backward. Silence fell over the trading post like a heavy blanket. Jake stood slowly, looking around at the bodies scattered in the dust. 6 men had come looking for easy prey. None of them would be riding away. Klaus emerged from behind the building, reloading his rifle with steady hands, despite everything that had happened. Anna was still on the porch, staring at Dalton's body with wide eyes. "You hurt?" Jake asked, holstering his pistol. "I'm fine," she said quietly. Then, louder, "Thank you, both of you." Klaus walked over to Jake and extended his hand. "That was well done. We owe you our lives." Jake shook the older man's hand. Any decent man would have done the same. Anna stepped down from the porch and walked over to where they stood. She looked at Jake with an expression he couldn't quite read, gratitude certainly, but something else too. Something intense and unsettling. "You saved us," she said simply. Jake touched the brim of his hat. "Like I told your father, any decent man would have done the same." Anna shook her head slowly. "No. Not any man would have stayed to fight 6 armed raiders for strangers. Not any man would have risked his life like that." She stepped closer, close enough that Jake could see the flecks of gold in her dark eyes. "You risked everything for us," she said, her voice soft but carrying a strange intensity. "That makes you mine now." Jake blinked, taken aback by her words. "Ma'am?" Anna reached up and touched his face gently, her fingers tracing the line of his jaw. "You belong to me now, Jake Morrison. You gave your life for mine, and that makes you mine to keep." Klaus cleared his throat uncomfortably. "Anna, the man just helped us. He doesn't belong to anyone." But Anna wasn't looking at her father. Her eyes were fixed on Jake's face with an intensity that made him uncomfortable. "He stayed when he could have ridden away," she said, still touching his face. "He fought for me when he didn't have to. That makes him mine." Jake gently took her hand and lowered it from his face. "Miss Weber, I appreciate the sentiment, but I'm a free man. I help folks because it's right, not because it makes me belong to anyone." Anna smiled, but it was a strange smile. Not unpleasant exactly, but holding secrets Jake couldn't fathom. "We'll see about that," she said softly. Klaus was looking between them with growing concern. "Anna, why don't you help me gather these weapons? We'll need to bury these men before nightfall." Anna nodded but didn't move away from Jake immediately. "You'll stay for supper," she said. It wasn't really a question. Jake glanced at the sun, still high in the western sky. "I should probably be moving on, got places to be." "Stay," Anna said firmly. "It's the least we can do after what you did for us." Klaus nodded agreement. "She's right. Stay the night at least. Your horse needs rest, and so do you." Jake looked around at the bodies of the raiders, then at the bullet holes in the trading post walls. It had been a hard fight, and his horse could use the rest. "All right," he said finally. "One night." Anna's smile widened, and again Jake caught that unsettling intensity in her expression. "One night," she agreed. "To start." As they worked together to clean up the aftermath of the gunfight, Jake found himself watching Anna Weber with growing unease. She was beautiful, certainly, and brave. That shot she'd made to save him had been clean and sure. But there was something in the way she looked at him. Something possessive and determined that made him uncomfortable. When Klaus suggested they drag the bodies away from the trading post, Anna insisted on helping, despite her father's protests. She worked alongside the men without complaint, but Jake noticed she stayed close to him, always within arm's reach. "Where are you headed?" she asked as they pulled the last body toward a wash where they could bury them. "Montana Territory," Jake replied. "Got a job waiting on a ranch up there." "Long way to go," Anna observed. "Dangerous country between here and there. I've been over the trail before. I can handle myself. Anna stopped walking and looked at him directly. Like you handled yourself today? Jake frowned. I did all right. You nearly got yourself killed, Anna said bluntly. If I hadn't been there with that rifle, Dalton would have shot you in the head. It was true, and Jake knew it. He'd taken a big risk tackling Dalton hand to hand. In a fair fight, he might have won, but fights with desperate men were never fair. You saved my life, he admitted. Anna's expression softened. And you saved mine first. That makes us even, doesn't it? I suppose it does. Anna shook her head. No, Jake Morrison. That makes us bound together. You can't save someone's life and then just ride away like nothing happened. It doesn't work that way. Jake was beginning to understand that Anna Weber had some very particular ideas about obligations and debts. Ideas that made him nervous. As the sun began to set, they finished burying the raiders in the wash. Klaus spoke a few words over the graves, not because the dead men deserved them, but because it was the Christian thing to do. Anna stood close to Jake throughout the brief ceremony, close enough that he could smell the faint scent of lavender in her hair. Back at the trading post, Anna prepared a meal while Klaus and Jake repaired the worst of the bullet damage to the building. The work was familiar and soothing after the violence of the afternoon. Your daughter's got strong opinions, Jake commented as they hammered a board over a shattered window. Klaus paused in his work. Anna's always been determined. Lost her mother when she was 15, and she's had to be strong ever since. Maybe too strong sometimes. What do you mean? Klaus looked toward the trading post, where lamplight showed Anna moving around inside preparing their meal. She doesn't let go of things easy. When she makes up her mind about something or someone, well, it's hard to change it. She'll get over whatever notion she's got about me belonging to her, Jake said. Once I'm gone, she'll find someone else to focus on. Klaus gave him a long, measuring look. Maybe. But Anna's not like other women, Morrison. When she sets her mind on something, she usually gets it. The unease Jake had been feeling all evening deepened into something closer to worry. Anna Weber was beautiful and brave, but she was also intense in a way that suggested depths Jake wasn't sure he wanted to explore. Dinner was excellent, venison steak with potatoes and cornbread that melted in Jake's mouth. Anna was a fine cook, and under different circumstances, Jake might have enjoyed the domestic comfort of the scene. But throughout the meal, he felt Anna's eyes on him, studying him with that same unsettling intensity. Tell us about yourself, Jake, Anna said as they finished eating. Where are you from originally? Texas, Jake replied. Little town called Cedar Creek, southeast of Austin. Family there? Sister and her husband. Parents died when I was young. Anna leaned forward slightly. So you're alone out here? No wife waiting for you in Montana? No wife anywhere, Jake confirmed, beginning to see where this was leading. Anna smiled that mysterious smile again. Good. That makes things simpler. Klaus cleared his throat. Anna, Mr. Morrison's personal affairs are his own business. Of course they are, Papa, Anna agreed without taking her eyes off Jake. I'm just getting to know the man who saved our lives. After dinner, Klaus suggested they sit on the porch and enjoy the cool evening air. Jake was grateful for the suggestion. The trading post had begun to feel uncomfortably small with Anna watching his every movement. They sat in wooden chairs and looked out at the desert, now silver under starlight. It was peaceful after the violence of the day, and Jake found himself relaxing despite his concerns about Anna. Beautiful country, he commented. It is, Anna agreed. Hard country, too. Not many people can thrive out here. Your family seems to do well enough. We do what we have to do, Klaus said. Make the best of what we have. Anna was quiet for a long moment, then said, Sometimes the best things come to you when you least expect them. Jake glanced at her, caught again by that intensity in her voice. I suppose that's true. Like today, Anna continued. We were just going about our business and then those men came. We thought we might die, but instead we found something precious. You found help when you needed it, Jake corrected gently. Anna shook her head. We found you. Klaus stood abruptly. I think I'll check on the horses before we turn in. Anna, why don't you get some blankets for Mr. Morrison? He can sleep in the back room. Anna nodded but made no move to get up. In a minute, Papa. Klaus hesitated, clearly wanting to interrupt whatever was developing between his daughter and their guest, but not sure how to do it without seeming rude. Finally, he nodded and walked toward the corral. Jake found himself alone with Anna Weber under the stars, and the silence between them felt heavy with unspoken possibilities. You're planning to leave in the morning, Anna said finally. Yes. Don't. The simple word hung in the air between them. Jake turned to look at Anna, seeing her face in profile against the starlight. I have obligations in Montana, he said carefully. You have obligations here now, too. Jake sighed. Miss Weber, I helped you today because it was the right thing to do. That doesn't create any obligations between us. Anna turned to face him directly. You're wrong. How so? Anna stood and moved to the porch railing, looking out at the desert. My mother used to tell me stories about the old country, about knights and heroes who saved villages from bandits and monsters. Do you know what happened to those knights? It's just stories, ma'am. The villages claimed them, Anna continued as if he hadn't spoken. The people they saved became their people. The land they defended became their land. They belonged to the place and the people they chose to protect. Jake stood as well, beginning to understand the depth of Anna's fixation. Those are just stories, Miss Weber. This is real life. Anna turned back to him, and in the starlight, her face was beautiful and determined and slightly wild. Real life is what we make it, Jake Morrison. You chose to risk your life for strangers. That choice has consequences. Such as... Anna stepped closer, close enough that Jake could see the gold flecks in her eyes, even in the dim light. Such as the fact that I'm never going to let you go. Jake felt a chill that had nothing to do with the desert night air. Ma'am, you can't just decide something like that. Anna reached up and touched his face again, her fingers gentle but possessive. I already have. Klaus's footsteps on the porch interrupted them, and Anna stepped back smoothly. But her eyes never left Jake's face. Horses are fine, Klaus announced. Ready to turn in? I'll get those blankets now, Anna said, finally looking away from Jake. As she disappeared into the trading post, Klaus moved to stand beside Jake at the railing. She's gotten some powerful ideas about you, the older man said quietly. So I've noticed. Anna's not used to being told no, Klaus continued. Her mother died young, and I probably spoiled her trying to make up for that loss. When she wants something, she usually finds a way to get it. Jake looked at Klaus in the starlight. Are you warning me about your own daughter? Klaus was quiet for a moment. I'm telling you that Anna Weber is like no woman you've ever met. She's strong and smart and brave, but she's also intense. When she loves completely. When she hates the same way. And which am I looking at? Klaus met his eyes directly. That remains to be seen. Jake woke before dawn, as was his habit from years of cattle drives. The desert air was cold and still, and through the small window of the back room he could see stars fading in the eastern sky. He dressed quietly, gathered his gear, and prepared to saddle Ranger for an early departure. He'd made his decision during the night. Anna Weber was a remarkable woman, but her intensity worried him. The way she looked at him, the things she said about him belonging to her, it wasn't healthy for either of them. Better to leave now, before whatever was building between them got any more complicated. Jake stepped out into the pre-dawn darkness and walked toward the corral where he'd left his horse. The trading post was quiet, and he moved carefully to avoid waking Klaus and Anna. A quick, silent departure would be best for everyone, but as he approached the corral, Jake stopped dead in his tracks. Ranger was gone. The gate stood open, and there were no horse tracks leading away from the enclosure. Jake's saddle and bridle were still where he'd left them, but his horse had vanished without a trace. "Looking for something?" Jake spun toward the voice and saw Anna sitting on the trading post porch, barely visible in the shadows. She was fully dressed despite the early hour, and there was something in her posture that told him this wasn't a coincidence. "My horse," Jake said evenly, "seems to have wandered off." Anna stood and walked toward him, her footsteps soft in the sand. "Horses don't usually wander off from a good water source, not unless someone leads them away." Jake studied her face in the dim starlight. "You know where Ranger is?" "I know where he's safe," Anna replied. "About 5 miles from here, in a box canyon with good grass and water. He'll be fine there." Jake felt anger building in his chest. "You had no right to take my horse." "I didn't take him," Anna said calmly. "I moved him somewhere safe. There are still raiders in this territory, and a good horse is a tempting target." "That's not why you did it." Anna moved closer, and Jake could see the determination in her dark eyes. "No, it isn't. I did it because you were planning to leave without saying goodbye, and because I told you. You belong to me now." Jake's jaw tightened. "I'm a free man, Anna Weber. You can't keep me here by stealing my horse." "I can keep you here any way I need to," Anna replied without hesitation. "You saved my life yesterday. That creates a debt that can't be paid with a simple thank you." Jake stared at her, beginning to understand that Anna's fixation on him was more serious than he'd thought. She wasn't just grateful or infatuated. She was genuinely convinced that saving her life gave her some kind of claim on him. "Where I come from," Jake said carefully, "helping folks in trouble is just common decency. It doesn't make anybody owe anybody anything." Anna shook her head. "Where I come from, when someone risks everything for you, they become part of your life forever. They become family." "I already have family." "In Texas, you said. Your sister and her husband." Anna stepped closer still, close enough that Jake could smell the lavender scent in her hair. "When's the last time you saw them?" Jake was quiet for a moment. "Been about 3 years." "3 years," Anna repeated. "And when's the last time you had a real home? Not a bunkhouse or a camp or a hotel room, but a real home with people who cared about you?" The question hit closer to home than Jake wanted to admit. He'd been drifting from job to job, ranch to ranch, for most of his adult life. It was the life he'd chosen, the freedom he'd wanted, but there were times when the loneliness of it wore on him. "I like my life the way it is," he said. "Do you?" Anna reached up and touched his face, the gesture becoming familiar despite his discomfort with it. "Or do you just think you do, because you've never had anything better?" Before Jake could answer, the trading post door opened and Klaus emerged, already dressed for the day. "Trouble?" Klaus asked, looking between Jake and his daughter. "Mr. Morrison's horse wandered off," Anna said smoothly. "I was just telling him we'd help him look for it after breakfast." Klaus frowned. "Wandered off? That's odd. Gates were closed tight last night." Anna's expression didn't change. Animals can be unpredictable. Klaus looked at his daughter suspiciously, then at Jake. "I see. Well, we'll find him. Horse can't have gone far." Jake met Klaus's eyes and saw understanding there. The older man knew exactly what had happened, even if he couldn't prove it. "I'd appreciate the help," Jake said finally. Anna smiled, and Jake caught that same disturbing intensity in her expression. "Of course. We'll do everything we can to help you find your horse." Breakfast was a tense affair. Anna cooked eggs and bacon with the same skill she'd shown the night before, but Jake could barely taste the food. He was thinking about his situation, trying to figure out how to handle Anna's increasingly possessive behavior. Klaus seemed uncomfortable too, shooting worried glances at his daughter throughout the meal. Finally, he cleared his throat. "Anna, why don't you show Mr. Morrison around the property while I clean up here? Maybe you'll spot some horse tracks." Anna nodded eagerly. "Good idea, Papa. Jake, shall we start with the north pasture?" Jake had little choice but to agree. As they walked away from the trading post, Anna slipped her arm through his as naturally as if they'd been married for years. "Your father knows what you did," Jake said. "Papa knows I do what I think is best," Anna replied. "He doesn't always approve, but he trusts my judgment." They walked in silence for a few minutes, their boots crunching on the desert hardpan. The sun was fully up now, casting long shadows across the landscape. It was going to be another hot day. "Tell me about this job in Montana," Anna said eventually. "Cattle ranch north of Billings. Owner needs someone to ramrod his spring roundup." "Good pay?" "Good enough." Anna nodded thoughtfully. "And after the roundup, what then?" Jake shrugged. "Another job somewhere else, I suppose." "Always moving, never settling down. Doesn't that get lonely?" Jake had been asking himself the same question for years. "Sometimes, but it's the life I chose." Anna stopped walking and turned to face him. "What if you chose differently? Such as—" Anna gestured toward the trading post, visible in the distance. "Papa's getting older. This business needs a strong man to help run it. Someone who knows the country, knows how to handle trouble." Jake stared at her. "You're offering me a job?" "I'm offering you a home," Anna corrected. "A place to belong. People who care about you." "In exchange for what?" Anna's eyes met his directly. "In exchange for staying, for being mine." Jake pulled his arm free from hers and took a step back. "Anna, you can't just decide that someone belongs to you. People aren't property." "I'm not talking about property," Anna said, moving closer again. "I'm talking about love. I'm talking about finding the person you're meant to be with and holding on to them." "You don't even know me." Anna smiled. "I know everything I need to know. I know you're brave enough to fight 6 men to protect strangers. I know you're honorable enough to risk your life for people you'd never met before. I know you're gentle enough to treat a woman with respect, even when she's being difficult." "Being difficult?" Jake laughed despite himself. "Is that what you call stealing someone's horse?" "I call it being practical," Anna replied without embarrassment. "You were going to leave before we had a chance to really talk, before we had a chance to see what might grow between us." Jake looked at this remarkable, maddening woman and felt his resolve wavering. Anna Weber was beautiful, certainly, and brave beyond question. Under different circumstances, he might have been interested in getting to know her better, but her possessiveness, her certainty that he belonged to her simply because he'd helped her, that wasn't love. That was something else entirely, something that made Jake deeply uncomfortable. "Anna," he said gently, "what you're feeling isn't love. It's gratitude mixed up with something else. Give it time and it'll pass." Anna's expression hardened. "Don't tell me what I'm feeling, Jake Morrison. I'm not some silly girl who doesn't know her own mind." "I know you're not. But this intensity, this certainty about us, it's not healthy." Anna stepped closer, her eyes flashing with something dangerous. "You think I'm being unreasonable? You think I'm some kind of mad woman?" "I think you're a strong woman who's been through something traumatic," Jake said carefully. "Sometimes that can make people feel things that aren't really there." The slap came so fast, Jake almost didn't see it coming. Anna's palm cracked across his face with enough force to snap his head sideways. "Don't you dare patronize me!" Anna hissed. "What I feel for you is real." "What happened between us yesterday was real, and what's going to happen between us is real too." Jake rubbed his stinging cheek and looked at Anna with new eyes. The woman standing before him was no confused victim. She was something far more dangerous than that. "What's going to happen between us," Jake said quietly, "is that you're going to return my horse and I'm going to ride out of here. Today." Anna shook her head slowly. "No, you're not. You can't keep me here forever, Anna." "I don't need forever," Anna replied. "I just need long enough." "Long enough for what?" Anna's smile returned, but now it looked almost predatory. "Long enough for you to realize that you belong here. With me." They walked back toward the trading post in tense silence. Jake was beginning to understand that Anna Weber was not going to be reasoned with. Her conviction that he belonged to her wasn't just stubbornness or misplaced gratitude. It was something deeper and more troubling. Klaus was waiting for them on the porch, and his expression suggested he'd figured out exactly what was happening. "Any luck?" he asked. "Not yet," Anna said smoothly. "But we'll keep looking." Klaus nodded, but his eyes were troubled. "Maybe I should ride out and check the southern range." "That's not necessary, Papa," Anna said quickly. "I'm sure the horse will turn up." Jake met Klaus's eyes and saw sympathy there. The older man knew his daughter had taken Jake's horse, but he also knew there was nothing he could do about it. Anna Weber was clearly used to getting her way. "Mr. Morrison," Klaus said carefully, "might I have a word with you in private?" Anna's jaw tightened. "Papa, that's not necessary." "Yes, it is," Klaus replied firmly. "Mr. Morrison is our guest, and I want to make sure he's comfortable." Anna looked like she wanted to argue, but after a moment she nodded. "I'll be inside if you need me." Once Anna was gone, Klaus gestured for Jake to sit on the porch steps. The older man looked tired and worried. "She's got your horse," Klaus said without preamble. "I figured." Klaus sighed heavily. "Anna's always been determined, but this is different. I've never seen her like this before. What do you think I should do?" Klaus was quiet for a long moment. "Part of me wants to tell you to saddle one of my horses and ride out of here as fast as you can. Anna's fixated on you in a way that isn't healthy for either of you." "And the other part?" Klaus looked toward the trading post where Anna could be seen moving around inside. "The other part remembers that Anna's my daughter, and despite everything, I want her to be happy. She's been alone out here for years, helping me run this place, never showing interest in any of the men who've come through. Until you." Jake shook his head. "What she feels isn't real affection, Klaus. It's something else." "Maybe," Klaus agreed. "Or maybe she sees something in you that you don't see yourself." "Such as?" Klaus studied Jake's face. "A man worth keeping. Anna's not stupid, Morrison. She's impulsive and stubborn, but she's not stupid. If she's decided you're worth fighting for, maybe there's something to it." Jake felt that familiar unease stirring in his chest. "You're not suggesting I should stay." "I'm suggesting you should think carefully before you leave," Klaus said. "Anna's not going to give up easy. If you run off without resolving this, she might do something drastic." "Like what?" Klaus met his eyes directly. "Like following you. Anna can track and shoot and ride as well as any man. If she decides to come after you, you'll have a hard time shaking her." The thought of Anna Weber stalking him across the territory sent a chill down Jake's spine. He was beginning to understand that this situation was more complicated and more dangerous than he'd initially realized. "What do you suggest?" "Stay a few more days," Klaus said. "Let her get to know you better. Let yourself get to know her better, too. Maybe this obsession will burn itself out if you give it time." Jake doubted it would be that simple, but he could see the logic in Klaus's suggestion. Running away might only make Anna more determined to pursue him. "And if it doesn't burn out?" Klaus sighed again. "Then we'll cross that bridge when we come to it." That afternoon, Jake found himself helping Klaus repair a section of fence that had been damaged by the wind. It was honest work, and Jake found the familiar rhythm of physical labor soothing after the morning's tension. Anna appeared around noon with cold water and sandwiches for lunch. She seemed to have recovered from her earlier anger, chatting pleasantly about the weather and the condition of the trading post's supplies. But Jake noticed she stayed close to him throughout the meal, and her hand found excuses to touch his arm or shoulder. "This fence has been giving us trouble for months," Anna said as they resumed work. "Papa's not as young as he used to be, and some of this heavy work is hard for him." Jake glanced at Klaus, who looked strong enough to Jake's eyes, but he could see what Anna was getting at. "Your father seems plenty capable to me," Jake said. "He is, but he's 62 years old," Anna replied. "And we're out here alone most of the time, when something needs fixing or when trouble comes calling." She didn't finish the sentence, but Jake understood. Yesterday's raid had shown how vulnerable the isolated trading post could be. "Have you thought about moving somewhere safer?" Jake asked. "Closer to a town, maybe." Anna shook her head. "This is our home. Papa built this place with his own hands after Mama died. We're not running away just because it's dangerous." Jake admired her loyalty, but he could also see the practicality in what Anna was suggesting. The trading post did need a strong man around, and Klaus was indeed getting older, but staying would mean accepting Anna's possessive claims on him, and Jake wasn't sure he could do that. As the afternoon wore on, Jake found himself watching Anna as she worked alongside them. She was remarkably capable, strong enough to handle heavy fence posts, skilled enough to splice wire as well as any cowboy Jake had known. She was also beautiful in a wild, untamed way that reminded him of the desert itself. But every time she looked at him, Jake saw that same unsettling intensity in her eyes. The look that said she owned him, whether he agreed or not. As the sun began to set, they finished the fence repair and walked back toward the trading post. Anna fell into step beside Jake, close enough that their arms brushed as they walked. "You're good with your hands," she observed. "Been working ranches most of my life," Jake replied. "Papa's impressed with you," Anna continued. "Says you work like a man who cares about doing things right." Jake glanced at Klaus, who was walking a few steps ahead of them. "Your father's a good man. I respect him." "He respects you too," Anna said. "We both do." There was something in her tone that made Jake look at her more closely. "Anna, what are you thinking?" Anna smiled that mysterious smile again. "I'm thinking that maybe God sent you to us for a reason. Maybe everything that happened yesterday, the raiders, the fight, all of it, maybe it was meant to be." Jake felt that familiar chill. "I don't believe in destiny, Anna." "Maybe you should start," Anna replied, "because you're here and we need you, and somehow that doesn't feel like coincidence to me." That evening, Klaus suggested they play cards after supper. It was a pleasant, domestic scene, the three of them sitting around the table by lamplight, playing five-card stud for matchsticks. Anna was a good player, Jake discovered, with an excellent poker face and a talent for reading tells. But throughout the game, Jake felt her eyes on him. She studied his face like she was memorizing every detail, and when their eyes met, she smiled with that same possessive warmth. "Your deal, Jake," Anna said, sliding the cards across to him. Jake shuffled and dealt, trying to ignore the way Anna said his name, like it belonged to her somehow. "Tell us more about your family in Texas," Klaus said as he arranged his cards. "Not much to tell," Jake replied. "My sister Mary married a shopkeeper named Tom Williams. They've got 2 kids now, I think." "You think?" Anna asked. "Don't you keep in touch?" Jake shrugged. "Christmas cards mostly. Letters now and then." Anna exchanged a glance with her father. "That's sad. Family should stay close." "We stay as close as we can, given the distance," Jake said. Distance is just an excuse, Anna said firmly. If family matters to you, you make the effort. Jake looked at her over his cards. Sometimes people need space to live their own lives. And sometimes people use space as an excuse to avoid responsibility, Anna countered. Klaus cleared his throat. Anna, Mr. Morrison's family arrangements are his business. Of course they are, Papa, Anna agreed. I'm just saying that family is important. When you find people who care about you, you should hold on to them. Jake was beginning to understand that every conversation with Anna Weber somehow circled back to the same theme: belonging, possession, the obligation to stay with people who claimed you. The card game continued until nearly 10 o'clock, with Klaus winning most of the hands. Anna accused him of cheating, which he denied with mock indignation. It was pleasant and comfortable, and Jake found himself relaxing despite his reservations about Anna. I should turn in, Klaus announced finally. Anna, make sure Mr. Morrison has everything he needs. Anna nodded. Of course, Papa. Klaus stood, then paused. Mr. Morrison, I wanted to thank you again for yesterday. What you did took real courage. Any man would have done the same, Jake replied automatically. Klaus shook his head. No, not any man. You're special, Morrison. I hope you stay around long enough to realize that. After Klaus disappeared into his room, Jake found himself alone with Anna again. She began cleaning up the cards and matchsticks, but Jake could feel her attention focused on him. Papa's right, you know, Anna said without looking up. What you did yesterday was special. I've been in fights before, Anna. It wasn't anything special. Anna finished cleaning up and turned to face him directly. It wasn't the fighting that made it special. It was the choosing. The choosing? Anna moved closer, her dark eyes serious in the lamplight. You could have ridden on, probably should have ridden on. 6 against 1 isn't good odds for anybody, but you chose to stay and fight for people you didn't even know. That says something about who you are. Jake was uncomfortably aware of Anna's proximity, of the intensity in her voice and expression. It says I have a hard time walking away from trouble. It says you're the kind of man who protects the people he cares about, Anna corrected. The kind of man a woman could depend on. Anna? She reached up and touched his face again, her fingers gentle against his skin. The kind of man I could depend on. Jake caught her hand and gently lowered it. Anna, you need to understand something. What happened yesterday doesn't make me yours. Helping you doesn't create some kind of bond between us. Anna's expression didn't change. Doesn't it? No. Anna was quiet for a moment, studying his face. What would it take, Jake? What would what take? What would it take for you to stay? To be mine? Jake sighed. Anna, that's not how it works. People can't just belong to each other because one person decides they should. Answer the question, Anna said firmly. What would it take? Jake looked into her dark eyes and saw the determination there. Anna Weber was not going to let this go easily. I don't know, he said finally. Maybe if we'd met under different circumstances. Maybe if I'd had time to get to know you properly, without all this intensity about owing debts and belonging to each other. Anna nodded slowly. Time. You need time. Anna, that's not what I meant. But Anna was already moving away from him, her expression thoughtful. Time to get to know me. Time to see that this is where you belong. Jake felt a growing sense of alarm. Anna, you can't keep me here indefinitely. Eventually I'll find a way to leave. Anna turned back to him, and her smile was confident and slightly predatory. No, you won't. What makes you so sure? Anna's smile widened. Because I'm not the only one who thinks you belong here, Jake Morrison, and sooner or later you're going to realize it too. As Jake settled down in the back room that night, he stared at the ceiling and tried to figure out what he'd gotten himself into. Anna Weber was unlike any woman he'd ever met. Beautiful, brave, intelligent, and absolutely convinced that he belonged to her. The smart thing would be to find a way to leave immediately with or without his horse. But Klaus was right. Running might only make Anna more determined to follow him. And if he was being honest with himself, there was something appealing about the life Anna was offering. A home, a purpose, people who cared about him. It had been a long time since Jake had any of those things. But the price Anna was asking, his freedom, his independence, his right to make his own choices, that was higher than Jake was willing to pay. Wasn't it? Jake woke to the sound of horses approaching at speed. Dawn was just breaking over the desert, and through the window he could see dust clouds rising from the east. Multiple riders moving fast toward the trading post. He dressed quickly and grabbed his rifle, checking to make sure it was loaded. His Colt was already on his hip. He'd taken to sleeping armed since Anna had made it clear she wasn't planning to let him leave easily. Klaus was already on the porch when Jake emerged from the back room, rifle in hand and eyes fixed on the approaching riders. "Trouble?" Jake asked. "Looks like it," Klaus replied grimly. 4 men, riding hard. That usually means they're running from something or chasing something. Anna appeared in the doorway, fully dressed despite the early hour. She had Klaus's spare rifle in her hands and a determined expression on her face. "Same as yesterday?" she asked. Klaus squinted at the riders, now close enough to make out details. "No. Different men. But they're armed and riding like they've got urgent business." Jake positioned himself where he could see the approaching men while still having cover behind a porch post. After yesterday's fight, he wasn't taking any chances. The 4 riders pulled up in a cloud of dust about 20 yards from the trading post. They were rough-looking men, but something about them was different from the raiders they'd fought before. These men had the hard, weathered look of lawmen rather than outlaws. The leader dismounted and walked forward, his hand resting on his pistol grip, but not drawing the weapon. He was a big man with a gray beard and a badge pinned to his vest. "Klaus Weber?" he called out. "That's me," Klaus replied carefully. "Name's Sheriff Tom Bradley from Tucson. We're tracking a gang of raiders that hit a ranch east of here 2 days ago. Killed 3 people, including a woman and child. You seen any strangers pass through?" Klaus glanced at Jake, then back at the sheriff. "Matter of fact, we had trouble with raiders yesterday. 6 men, led by someone called Dalton." Sheriff Bradley's eyes sharpened. "Dalton? Tall, thin fellow with a black mustache and silver concho belt?" "That's him," Jake confirmed, stepping into view. "But they won't be hitting any more ranches." The sheriff looked Jake up and down, taking in his weapons and the confident way he held himself. "You deal with them?" "We all did," Jake said, nodding toward Klaus and Anna. "Had to bury 6 men yesterday afternoon." One of the other deputies spoke up. "Sheriff, these could be the ones we're looking for. Gang hits a ranch, then holes up somewhere to lay low." Sheriff Bradley held up a hand to quiet his man, but Jake could see suspicion growing in the lawman's eyes. "That's quite a coincidence, Mr. Morrison. Jake Morrison." Jake kept his voice steady and his hands visible. "And it wasn't coincidence. They came here looking for supplies and whatever else they could take. We defended ourselves." 6 men against 3? The sheriff's tone was skeptical. "That's impressive shooting." Anna stepped forward. "Mr. Morrison saved our lives, Sheriff. The raiders were going to kill us all." Sheriff Bradley studied the 3 of them carefully. "I'll need to see where you buried these men, and I'll need to hear the whole story." Over the next hour, Jake, Klaus, and Anna told their story while the sheriff and his deputies examined the burial site and the bullet holes around the trading post. The evidence supported their account: 6 fresh graves, numerous bullet impacts on the buildings, and bloodstains in the sand where men had fallen. Sheriff Bradley was thorough but fair in his questioning. By the time he was finished, Jake could see that the lawman believed their story. "Well," the sheriff said finally, "looks like you folks did the territory a service. The Dalton gang has been terrorizing this region for months. We've been trying to track them down for weeks. Will there be any legal trouble for us? Klaus asked. Sheriff Bradley shook his head. Self-defense is legal in Arizona territory. From what I can see, you acted properly. He looked at Jake with something approaching respect. Not many men would stay and fight those odds for strangers. Any decent man would have done the same, Jake said automatically. Anna shot him a sharp look, and Jake realized he'd repeated the same phrase he'd been using since the fight. But this time, Sheriff Bradley's response was different. No, Mr. Morrison, any decent man wouldn't have stayed. Most men would have ridden on and minded their own business. What you did took real courage. Jake felt uncomfortable with the praise, but before he could respond, Anna spoke up. Sheriff, Mr. Morrison's horse went missing yesterday. Have you seen any stray animals in your travels? Jake looked at Anna in surprise. He'd expected her to keep quiet about Ranger, but apparently she had other plans. Sheriff Bradley frowned. Missing horse? That's odd. What did he look like? Bay gelding. 15 hands, white star on his forehead, Jake replied. Goes by Ranger. One of the deputies spoke up. Sheriff, we saw a horse matching that description about 5 miles north of here, in that box canyon with the good grass. Jake's eyes snapped to Anna, who was looking anywhere but at him, so she'd told the truth about where Ranger was hidden. Box Canyon? Sheriff Bradley asked. You know the place? Klaus nodded slowly. I know it. Good place to keep horses safe from raiders. The sheriff's expression suggested he was beginning to understand the dynamics of the situation. I see. Well, Mr. Morrison, we can escort you there to collect your horse if you'd like. Anna's face went pale. That's not necessary, Sheriff. We can... I'd appreciate the escort, Jake said firmly, cutting her off. Thank you. Sheriff. Anna looked stricken, and Klaus closed his eyes as if in pain, but Jake had made his decision. With the sheriff's help, he could reclaim Ranger and be on his way before Anna could stop him. Sheriff Bradley nodded. Happy to help. We need to head north anyway, continuing our patrol. As the lawmen prepared to leave, Anna grabbed Jake's arm and pulled him aside. You can't go, she said urgently. Not like this. I have to, Anna. This situation between us isn't healthy for either of us. Anna's eyes filled with tears, but her grip on his arm didn't loosen. Jake, please, just give us more time. Jake looked into her face and felt his resolve waver. Anna Weber was beautiful and brave and passionate, and under different circumstances, he might have been tempted to stay and see what developed between them. But her possessiveness, her absolute certainty that he belonged to her, made any real relationship impossible. She didn't want a partner. She wanted property. I'm sorry, Anna, Jake said gently, but I have to go. Anna stared at him for a long moment, then her expression hardened. No. Anna, I said no. Anna's voice was cold and determined. You don't get to just walk away from this. From me. Jake felt a chill of apprehension. Anna, the sheriff's right there. You can't... Can't what? Anna challenged. Can't tell him that you're a wanted man? That you're running from the law? Jake stared at her in shock. That's not true. Anna's smile was cold. Isn't it? How do I know you're really Jake Morrison? How do I know you're not one of the raiders who escaped and came back to rob us? The threat was clear. And Jake realized with growing alarm that Anna was desperate enough to follow through with it. If she accused him of being a criminal, the sheriff would have to investigate. That could delay his departure for days or weeks. You wouldn't, Jake said. Try me, Anna replied. They stared at each other in tense silence. Jake could see that Anna meant every word. She was willing to destroy his reputation, possibly even get him thrown in jail rather than let him leave. What do you want, Anna? Anna stepped closer, her voice dropping to a whisper. I want you to stay. I want you to give us a real chance. And if I don't? Anna's expression was implacable. Then I'll do whatever I have to do to keep you here. Jake realized he was trapped. Anna held all the cards. She knew the sheriff, she had the support of her father, and she was clearly willing to lie to get what she wanted. But as he looked into her desperate, determined face, Jake also realized something else. Anna's obsession with him wasn't really about love or even possession. It was about fear. "You're afraid of being alone," he said suddenly. Anna's expression flickered just for a moment, and Jake knew he'd hit the mark. "Anna, you don't need me to protect you from loneliness. You're strong enough to make your own way in the world." "I don't want to be strong," Anna whispered. "I've been strong my whole life. I want to be yours." The raw vulnerability in her voice almost broke Jake's heart. He could see now that beneath Anna's fierce determination was a young woman who'd lost her mother too early and grown up too fast in a harsh, isolated place. "Anna," Jake said gently, "you can't make someone love you by trapping them. Real love has to be freely given." Anna's eyes filled with tears. "But what if you leave and never come back? What if I never find anyone else who makes me feel the way you do?" Jake touched her face softly. "Then that's a risk you'll have to take, because forcing me to stay won't give you what you really want." Anna leaned into his touch for a moment, then stepped back with her jaw set. "Sheriff Bradley." Jake's heart sank as Anna called out to the lawman, but instead of the accusation he'd expected, Anna said something that surprised him. "Sheriff, Mr. Morrison has been very helpful to us. If he wants to collect his horse and be on his way, we won't delay him further." Sheriff Bradley nodded. "Appreciate that, miss. Mr. Morrison, ready to ride?" Jake looked at Anna, searching her face. "You're letting me go?" Anna's smile was sad, but genuine. "I'm trying to love you the right way, Jake Morrison, even if it hurts." The ride to the box canyon took less than an hour. Ranger was there, as Anna had said, looking healthy and well-fed in the rich grass. The horse nickered with pleasure when he saw Jake, and Jake felt a rush of relief at being reunited with his companion. Sheriff Bradley and his deputies waited while Jake saddled Ranger. The sheriff was a perceptive man, and Jake could tell he'd figured out at least some of what had been happening at the trading post. "Miss Weber's quite attached to you," the sheriff observed. "Yes," Jake said simply. "She's a good woman. Helped us track down rustlers a few years back. Smart, brave, loyal to the people she cares about." Jake tightened his saddle girth. "I know." "Sometimes good women make bad choices when they're scared," Sheriff Bradley continued. "Fear makes people do desperate things." Jake looked at the sheriff. "You think I should stay?" Sheriff Bradley shrugged. "I think you should do what's right for both of you. But I also think you should know that Anna Weber is the kind of woman a man might spend his whole life looking for and never find." With Ranger saddled and ready, Jake mounted up and followed the sheriff's party back toward the trading post. But as they rode, Sheriff Bradley's words echoed in his mind. Anna Weber was indeed remarkable, beautiful, brave, intelligent, capable of fierce loyalty and love. In different circumstances, she might have been exactly the kind of woman Jake could have built a life with. But her obsessive possessiveness, her conviction that saving her life gave her ownership of him, that wasn't love. That was desperation masquerading as devotion. Or was it? Jake found himself thinking about their conversations over the past 2 days, about Anna's questions regarding his loneliness, his lack of family connections, his drifting from job to job with no real home or purpose. Maybe Anna saw something in him that he couldn't see himself. Maybe her certainty that he belonged with them wasn't obsession, but insight. When they reached the trading post, Anna and Klaus were waiting on the porch. Anna's face was composed, but Jake could see the tension in her posture. "Got your horse back?" Sheriff Bradley announced. We'll be moving on now. Thank you folks for your cooperation." As the sheriff and his men prepared to leave, Jake remained mounted on Ranger. This was his chance. He could ride out with the lawmen, put distance between himself and Anna Weber, get back to his original plan of reaching Montana. "Jake." Anna's voice was soft, but it carried clearly in the desert air. Jake turned to look at her. "Thank you," she said simply, "for everything." Jake touched the brim of his hat. "Take care of yourself, Anna." Anna nodded, and Jake could see tears glistening in her eyes. But she didn't beg him to stay, didn't threaten him, didn't try to manipulate him into remaining. She just stood there with quiet dignity and let him make his choice. Jake turned Ranger toward the north, toward Montana, and the job waiting for him there. The sheriff and his men were already moving out, and Jake could fall in with them easily. But as he looked at the desert stretching endlessly ahead, Jake found himself thinking about what he was riding toward. Another temporary job, another bunkhouse full of strangers, another few months of work before moving on to the next place. And what was he leaving behind? A woman who loved him, even if she didn't know how to show it properly. A man who respected him and could offer him meaningful work. A home, if he wanted it. Jake pulled Ranger to a stop. The sheriff noticed and rode back to him. "Problem, Morrison?" Jake looked back at the trading post where Anna and Klaus still stood on the porch. Anna was watching him with desperate hope in her eyes, but she made no move to call out or try to influence his decision. "Sheriff," Jake said slowly, "what did you mean when you said Anna helped you track rustlers?" Sheriff Bradley looked pleased by the question. "Few years back, we had a gang stealing cattle from ranches all through this territory. Anna Weber tracked them for us, led us right to their hideout. Best tracker I've ever seen, man or woman. She's got skills beyond cooking and keeping house." The sheriff chuckled. "Morrison, Anna Weber can out-track, out-shoot, and outride half the men in this territory. She's also got a head for business. The trading post has done better since she took over most of the operations from her father." Jake absorbed this information. "She's not just a lonely woman looking for a husband." "Hell no," Sheriff Bradley said. "Anna Weber could have her pick of men if she wanted. Rich ranchers, successful businessmen. Even some of my deputies have tried courting her. She's never shown interest in any of them. Until now." Sheriff Bradley nodded. "Until now. Makes a man wonder what she sees in you that she didn't see in all the others." Jake looked back at Anna again. She was still watching him, but she hadn't moved from the porch. She was letting him make his choice freely, without pressure or manipulation. "Sheriff," Jake said finally, "I think I need to have another conversation with Miss Weber." Sheriff Bradley grinned. "I think that's a fine idea, Morrison." Jake dismounted and walked Ranger back toward the trading post. Anna's face was carefully neutral, but Jake could see the hope flickering in her dark eyes. "Forget something?" Klaus asked as Jake approached the porch. "Maybe," Jake replied. He looked at Anna directly. "I've been thinking about what you said, about me belonging here." Anna's breath caught, but she didn't speak. "You were wrong about one thing," Jake continued. "Saving your life doesn't make me yours. That's not how belonging works." Anna's face fell, and Jake saw her shoulders slump in defeat. "But," Jake continued, "choosing to stay, choosing to build something together, choosing to make a life with someone, that's different. That's real belonging." Anna's head snapped up, hope blazing in her eyes. "I'm not your property, Anna Weber," Jake said firmly. "But if you want me to be your partner, if you want us to choose each other every day instead of you owning me, well, that's something I might be interested in discussing." Anna stepped off the porch and walked toward him, her face radiant with joy. "Partners." "Equal partners," Jake confirmed. "No ownership, no possession, just two people choosing to build a life together." Anna stopped in front of him, close enough to touch but not reaching out. And if I sometimes get possessive? If I sometimes act like I own you? Jake smiled. Then I'll remind you that I'm here by choice, not because I belong to you. And if you don't like that arrangement, I can always saddle Ranger and ride out. Anna's answering smile was brilliant. I can live with that. Klaus cleared his throat. Does this mean you're staying, Morrison? Jake looked around at the trading post, at the desert stretching away in all directions, at the life Anna was offering him. It wasn't the life he'd planned, but maybe it was the life he needed. Yeah, Jake said finally. I think I am. Anna stepped forward and touched his face with that same gesture she'd been using since they met. But this time it felt different. Not possessive, but tender. Thank you, she whispered. Jake caught her hand and held it. Thank you for letting me choose. Sheriff Bradley and his men rode away a few minutes later, leaving Jake, Anna, and Klaus to begin figuring out their new arrangement. There would be challenges ahead. Jake knew that Anna's possessive instincts wouldn't disappear overnight, and he knew his own restless nature wouldn't be easy to settle. But as he watched Anna moving around the trading post with new energy and purpose, as he saw Klaus's obvious relief at having help with the work, Jake felt something he hadn't experienced in years. He felt like he was home. That evening, as they sat on the porch watching the sun set over the desert, Anna reached over and took Jake's hand. I have a confession, she said. Jake looked at her warily. What kind of confession? Anna's smile was mischievous. I might have exaggerated how lost your horse was. He was only about a mile away in that little valley behind the ridge. Jake stared at her. You mean, you could have found him easily if you'd really looked, Anna admitted. I was counting on you not trying too hard. Jake laughed, despite himself. Anna Weber, you are the most devious, manipulative, impossible woman I've ever met. Anna's smile widened. Is that a complaint? Jake leaned over and kissed her softly. Not at all. But from now on, we're partners. No more games, no more manipulation, agreed? Anna kissed him back. Agreed. Although I can't promise I won't try to convince you to see things my way now and then. I wouldn't expect anything less, Jake said, pulling her closer. Just remember, I'm here because I choose to be, not because you trapped me here. Anna settled against his side with a contented sigh. I'll remember. But Jake? Yeah? You do belong to me now, just like I belong to you. That's what love is. Jake looked down at this remarkable woman who had upended his entire life in the space of 3 days. Anna Weber was still intense, still possessive, still absolutely certain of what she wanted. But now Jake was starting to think that maybe, just maybe, she was right.